Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast with Jacob Maggerdan.
Dalton Phillips.
And this is just a great slate of games we have this week. I'm really excited for it. Obviously, we got a great season this year so far, and so a lot of these matchups are just going to be really fun. Some very important matchups, and of course, our two teams back in action at the same time again. To go into it this week, we got our pop segment of the week, not our Mountain Dew segment. We've kind of run out of flavors to try. There's not enough new flavors, so Dalton, just want to go ahead and start us with what you got over there.
It's getting that cold, wintry feel, and I've got me a ginger ale today.
Well, ginger ale going.
Yeah, that's a little different there.
I'm rocking the Pib Extra. To
Oh yeah,
me,
I know that's your favorite.
one of the best. I think Dr. Pepper is a little bit better, but down here at the old tech campus, we got a lot of Piv everywhere. So Piv is what I'm rocking today. Um, always been one of my favorite pops. So yeah, you got that right. And just diving right into these games. First one here, super important game because Ole Miss has to keep rolling. If they drop another game, the season's over because they just don't have a playoff shot, especially if they lose to a team like Florida or Mississippi State next week. This Florida team, on the other hand, they're fighting for a lot because they just want to build onto the future of their program. They have a quarterback who's super young, who's looked really good at times this year, but he's also had some struggles. His passing ability he's working on still hasn't got a lot better there in that realm. But when he is running and when he's making plays out of the pocket, he is a dynamic quarterback, and you can see his abilities outside the pocket. Looking at the stats here, I mean Jackson Dart, he is up there, and his name is definitely going to get thrown in that Heisman conversation, especially if Ole Miss finds themselves in the SEC championship game, and of course in a good position to make the playoffs. 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, only four interceptions on the year. I mean, the guy has been unbelievable. He's boosting his draft stock a lot. He's got the running ability, which obviously very important in today's world with the dual threat quarterbacks. And on the other side for Florida, DJ Lagway, like I mentioned, a young guy, freshman, supposed to be a superstar, has had games where he's looked that way. He's also faced injuries this year that has limited his rushing ability. And when you take away his best thing, which is his run, it definitely limits him as a player. It doesn't allow him to make a lot of passing plays because you just can't get out of the pocket and make the kind of plays he wants to make. Other than that, Dalton, dive into these running back stats.
Yeah, Ole Miss has Henry Parrish Jr. He's a stud. It's just the fact of they pass so much. That's the reason his stats aren't crazy, crazy. I mean, he's still got almost 700 rushing yards in the year, averaging like almost 6 yards a carry. That's something that's great. And for Florida, you got three different backs. The lead back is Jordan Baugh. He's done all right this year. Montrell Johnson and Jacoby Jackson also take some carries there. Neither one of these teams are like huge on the running the ball, except Florida does a little bit more than Ole Miss does, though.
Yeah, and Florida, like you said, they have a lot of backs that get carries. We looked at
Yeah.
a while back, and Montrell was their lead rusher. Now, of course, Bobby and their lead rusher, so they split some carries there. And of course, Lagway, his running ability will be important in their rushing attack. Same as Dart on the other side. Also has that dual threat ability, gets out of the pocket. Not a lot of design run plays for him, but he definitely has rushing ability. Diving into receiver stats here, when they get Trey Harris back, if they get Trey Harris back, it just improves an offense that's already really good and adds a guy that's still sitting near 1,000 yards. And again, he hasn't played in like 4 or 5 weeks. And they've also found some other guys since Dart has had to, he's had to find his other guys. He's had to go to different dudes. And of course, he does use his running backs a little bit in the passing game, but nothing like they used Judkins last year when he was here. And then you look at Florida, Elijah Badger being their stud. Lagway goes to him a lot. And as you can tell, I mean, 30 catches for 691 yards. When he gets the ball in his hand, dynamic playmaker. Three touchdowns on the year. And of course, Lagway will look towards him in big time moments in this game. If they want to win, they've got to have some sort of passing game going. Going to make a pick here. This game being in the swamp does not make this easy. It is very, very hard to go in there and get a win. We've seen teams that are much better than them go in there and struggle all year. And I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think Ole Miss will take this one. I think that they know what they have to do to make the playoffs. This is just a bump in their road going to a playoff run, and I think they will handle business here. I don't know if they'll blow them out. I don't see that, but they just have too good of an offense, and the defense has really started stepping up. I don't think this Florida team has a chance to beat them here. I'm taking Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the Gators here. I don't like Florida at all. As of all, I can't stand them. But they're rolling off of a big W last week. I think they're going to go and shock the world and beat a good old Ole Miss team here.
Next game here, obviously you're looking at this and you're saying, well, that's a weird one to choose, but this is really important. You look at all these non-power schools and in their conference play, one of them will make the playoffs. I don't think one of these two teams can make it. It's just going to take a lot, but it is really cool to see Sam Houston being this good this quick into their FBS run. Sitting at 8-2, 5-1 in the conference, do have some big wins on the season, and you could say the same on the other side for Jacksonville State. Again, this soon into their run in the FBS, they're competing already, 7-3 and undefeated in conference play, looking like the favorite to win the championship in the Conference USA. You look at stats here. Hunter Watson has been the guy for Sam Houston, but again, he's not having a crazy good season. 1,300 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, does have the 7 interceptions through the 10 games. So we'll see what he can do in this game. Of course, they need him to step up. They need him to be the guy because if he isn't, then they have to lean on a run game that doesn't have. They're not super great at that. They're not amazing at running the ball. On the other side, you look at Jacksonville State. This guy's awesome. Tyler Huff was a guy that if you look at the beginning of the year, you say, man, he could have been at one of these big universities. Imagine this guy at Florida State instead of DJ Uiagalelei. He would be putting them in a much better position than DJ has. Again, DJ's done for the year. This guy's still higher performing. He is one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the country. We were looking at stats last week when we talked about, of course, the guys we brought up last week and a guy we brought up in this video later on that is really dynamic rushers. Huff can do that with his legs. He gets out, he makes a lot of plays. And of course, they already have a dynamic running game. Dalton, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Trey Stewart is a stud. He's averaging almost 6.5 yards a carry, and you see how many carries that man's getting. He's almost got 200 carries, 1,219 yards. That is ridiculous. That's not Genty stats, but that's getting close.
Yeah, he's
And
putting on for Jacksonville, of course, and to mention again the 19 touchdowns, extremely
yeah,
impressive by
yeah,
him.
that's very impressive by itself. And on the other side, you have Jay Ducker, DJ McKinney. This team doesn't run the ball as well, nearly as well as
Mhm.
Jacksonville State does. Obviously, I mean, your running back's got 19 touchdowns and 1,200 yards.
Yeah,
On the other side of the ball, I mean, what can you expect? So,
yeah, and again, it's going to be important that they establish some sort of
yep.
run game because they don't have a super dynamic passing attack either. Again, this team has played really well on defense, and a lot of their offense has come from just different guys making plays at different times. They don't go to a stud, kind of like Jacksonville State does. Looking at receivers here, of course, Evans is the guy. I mean, Hunter Watson goes to him a ton, 33 catches, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. But again, that's not a crazy stat line. Again, your quarterback only has 1,300 yards, so he hasn't spread the ball around a ton. But that's the lead receiver for them. On the other side, Cam Vaughn is a leader for Jacksonville State. Again, a really good rushing attack. And on top of that, they have a receiver with 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. If they can get the receiving game going, it will open up the run game more, which is obviously what they want to do. They want to pound the rock. They have a quarterback and a running back that can run really well. Going to make a pick in this one. Jacksonville State has the home game. They know that if they win this game, they are setting themselves up perfectly for a Conference USA championship. Again, this early in their stint in the FBS, be very impressive. I think Jacksonville State takes this at home. Again, I love Tyler Huff. Great quarterback. Love him. I think he would be such a big help for one of these teams that has struggling quarterbacks that have good teams around them and just can't figure out the quarterback situation. And again, you mentioned Stewart is unbelievable, having a crazy good season. Give me Jacksonville State. Give me Jacksonville State big.
Yeah, I'm going to go also. I'm going to go Jacksonville State by 30 points, I think. Their
Crazy.
offense is just elite, and I don't know if this Sam Houston defense can handle it.
Next game here, this is it. This is the game of the week. Nobody's questioning it. This is college game day. This is the most important game in Indiana Hoosier football history. They are playing to be the highest ranked they've ever been in their entire existence as a program. They're already there at 5. They win this game, they go to 2. And that would be insane to say the Indiana Hoosiers, who have been bad at football in the last 5 years, are sitting at number 2 in the country and in a perfect prime position to play in a conference championship game against the number 1 team in the country. Everything is on the table for Indiana in this game. You could say the same for Ohio State. If they lose this game, they won't drop out of the playoffs. They'll be okay. But again, they will be at a lower seed. They might miss out on having a home game. And obviously, no conference championship if you lose this one. Very important to get the win in front of your fans at home. You look at stats here. Curtis Rourke, a guy that I have in my Heisman, and I just can't take him out of there with what he's doing with Indiana. Again, not a football school. 2,400 yards, 21 touchdowns, only the 4 interceptions. Very, very good quarterback play. You could say the same on the other side. Will Howard is leading a very good offense, 2,400 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Again, these guys don't turn the ball over a whole lot, and they're very consistently good quarterbacks, and you can just trust those guys. They're both veterans. They've both been here for 5 years. They know what they're doing. They're leading really good football teams. Don't even talk about the rushing attack, important for both sides.
Yeah, Indiana has Justice Ellison and Tyson Long. We've talked about them all year.
Yeah.
They're both consistent playing good. And you've got to have that, especially with this Indiana team playing against this Ohio State with a stacked backfield with Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson. Yeah, that is a dynamic duo in the backfield. I don't know if there's been two backs like that ever, honestly.
Yeah.
They're two studs.
Yeah, again, these are two NFL talented backs, and we've had backfields like that in the past, and it is hard to remember a backfield being this good. These two guys, again, you could take them and separate them, and they're going to be number one backs on top teams if you take them and separate them. They're together. So, yeah, it makes it unbelievable. Again, Judkins is a great pass catcher out of the backfield. That's what really helps his NFL stock. And Henderson's just a really, really hard runner. You dive into the stats for receivers. Elijah Surratt, again, followed his coach here. He's been awesome. I mean, really, really great. Curtis Short goes to him a lot. He trusts him a lot. 6 touchdowns, 685 yards, 38 catches on the season. And on the other side for OSU, we are talking about the best freshman receiver in the country in Jeremiah Smith. 49 catches, 865 yards, 9 touchdowns. Highlight reel every single week. Every week, you watch this guy make a crazy play. Went for 100 yards last week. And then, of course, on top of that, they have Emeka Egbuka and just tons of talent on this team. It's going to be hard to beat this Ohio State offense. Going to make a pick here. Ohio State has the game at home. This is the biggest game they've played this year besides the Oregon loss. They have to redeem themselves. They have to get back to a conference championship game. And I really love this Indiana football team, and that's why I'm going with them. I can't pick against Indiana. It, to me, is the story of just Curtis Short, a guy that was at a small time school, sitting in the MAC conference, not playing big time football. He got hurt this year. He had to fight through that. And then Kurt Cignetti, he said it once, he said it again. All I do is win. So I'm going Kurt Cignetti. I'm going Indiana. Hype up the Hoosiers. I believe in them.
Man, you took every word out of my mouth. I had that same speech said right there. I mean, he wins ball games, and guess what? He's going to win again.
Next game here, another fun one in the Big Ten Conference. Illinois on the road against the Rutgers. This Rutgers team, they started hot, then they slowed down a ton. Really, really ugly middle of the season. They've warmed back up some, of course, leaning on the shoulders of a guy that we will mention later on, absolute stud. Illinois, you look at them consistently, just just good. They're never great, and they're never bad. They hang in every game, and they've competed this year to sit at 7-3 and then 25th in the college football rankings. Diving into stats, Luke Altmaier, again, a guy we hyped up at the beginning of the year as consistent and does not turn the ball over. He doesn't. 3 interceptions on the whole season, 18 touchdowns, 2,100 yards. Again, I trust Luke Altmaier every time he steps on the field. And on the other side, Ethan Kaliakmanis is the story for the Rutgers. This guy was not good at Minnesota before he transferred in. Now he's a 2,100-yard passer with 14 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. Again, vast improvement from last year. And the Rutgers really knew what they were doing when they went out and got him because quarterback play has been their issue. They solved that with Ethan Kaliakmanis. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing game.
Yeah, talk about the running game. Kyle Monunga is a stud. I remember watching him play against Tech this year, and I mean that guy is a truck. He's a hard guy to tackle. I think he's one of the better backs in the country. I know he's short on stats than compared to other backs, but I still think he's up there. And on the other side of the ball, you have Illinois that has three backs. They all get carries. Josh McCray, Aiden Laffery, and Caden Fegan. They're all good, and they share the wealth there, you might say.
Yeah, the three-back backfield is very important for Illinois. Of course, they've relied on different guys all year. We've mentioned that each and every time we talk about them. And if you look at the rushing yards here, it's different every week. I mean, Josh McCray's now the guy on there, but Aiden Lafferty's been on here before. And of course, at the beginning of the season, Caden Fegan was up there. So it is really a rotating backfield. And then, of course, Kyle Monunga, absolute animal, will be in the NFL, no doubt. You look at receivers. We've talked about the Illinois guy, Pat Bryant, an absolute weapon. I mean, they play him anywhere. Again, they've lined him up all over the field. Kind of use him like Tyler Warren down at Penn State. Of course, not in the same way because he's just not a big dude, but it's similar in the way that they throw him anywhere on the field, even fullback at times. And it's pretty interesting how he plays. And then, of course, for the Rutgers, Damier Miller is their guy. 50 catches, 645 yards, 4 touchdowns. Rely on him a lot, and that's why Ethan Kaliakmanis is having the kind of season he's having. Going to make a pick here. Rutgers has this home game. I think this Rutgers team has played a lot better since that little stretch in the middle where they were just really not playing good football. I think they lost 3 straight at one point. I'm going to take the Rutgers. I like Rutgers at home here. Again, in the Big Ten atmosphere, that home field advantage matters just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's not a super big advantage for the Rutgers, but I think they take this one. I think they get enough out of Monunga. I think he has a great game, and it's going to be very close, probably really low scoring and clock management game. But I take the Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rutgers here too. I like Kyle Monangai. He's a stud, and I want to see that guy show out again.
Next game here, Colorado on the road against Kansas. This Kansas team is absolutely piping hot right now. This is the best that they've played all year for the last 2 weeks. They've upset teams and ended hopes that they've had. Now, of course, BYU still has a chance, but this Kansas team is just out to kill the Big 12, take out all the big time teams. Colorado's next on their list. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting game. Diving into stats, Shedeur Sanders, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, a 3,200-yard passer with 27 touchdowns, only the 7 interceptions. And again, a lot of why he's played better at certain points this year is his offensive line has stepped it up a little bit. Again, he still gets sacked a lot, but at least he's not getting sacked like 70 times like he did last year. He's got a little bit more time to work with. And on the other side for Kansas, Jalen Daniels was coming off a game last week where he really didn't play that great, other than the punt that won them the football game. So it's really an interesting dynamic. We'll see how Jalen Daniels plays this week. They're going to have to expect him to run a lot, but also they need that passing ability to be able to have some sort of dynamic offense. Don't even talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Colorado has struggled in the run game, but they're waking up a little bit. It's due to their offensive line. I get Isaiah Augusta is not really the issue, I don't think. It's like they just struggle to run behind their offensive line. Their offensive line just needs to uh, figure out the block, honestly.
Yeah.
And Kansas has Devin Neal, and Devin Neal's a stud. I mean, he is. He's starting to wake up a little bit too. He's one of those guys that for Kansas that surprises me that they're 4-6. They have so many athletes. It's surprising.
Yeah, again, this Kansas team just drops a lot of close games. That's what's hurt them this year.
Yeah.
And they figured it out the last 2 weeks how to win the close games. You just look at the season and say, man, if they could have won some more of those, they'd be competing because they do have talent, like you said. You look at the receiving stats for these two teams. Travis Hunter's an absolute monster. He does it both ways. Again, phenomenal receiver. Really, really great cornerback, top five at that position. Then you talk about Jimmy Horn, again, the slot guy that has kind of fallen off a little bit, gotten slower down the stretch, and then Will Shepherd again a big dude, big target, and they go to him some. And that team has really just saw a lot of guys step up and be much better this year, which has made them a much better football team overall. On the other side for Kansas, Luke Grimm, lead receiver, very important that he gets going in this game. 44 catches, 582 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then, of course, they use Devin Neal as well in the receiving game, sometimes out of the backfield, sometimes with some screens and whatnot. But again, it's important to get your best player the ball. He is that for Kansas. Another important thing to mention, they are passing the torch in Colorado. Julian Lewis has committed to play for Colorado next year. Again, that's a big name. And that system that a lot of people thought might fall apart after he leaves, it's going to be there next year too. Shadeur's gone, but they have Julian Lewis coming in. Interesting thing to mention because this team knows that they're fighting for this, but they're also fighting for the future of this program and turning them around, trying to make them a flagship program in college football. You go to make a pick here. Kansas has this home game, and the fans are going to be kind of riled up now. I don't think anybody expected them to be this bad. And at one point, they were sitting at 2-6. That is just really unheard of for a team that was projected to win the Big 12. They now have a great chance to just upset everybody, take out all the top teams, make this conference go crazy. And I think they win this one. I do. I think Kansas wins this ball game. I think that they're just really hot right now. It's hard to beat a team that is extremely hot at home. And on top of that, they gotta beat this team that wasn't in their conference last year. Show them what the real Big 12 is about. I think Kansas wins. I think it will be extremely close. And if you see Colorado take this game, look for Travis Hunter having those iconic type plays on both sides of the ball to get them the win. But I take Kansas.
Yeah, I'm going to go Colorado here. I think Travis is going to make it that many plays, and Shitter's going to throw him the rock, and he's going to catch it every time. I think it's perfect timing for them to win again. I think that they're peaking. I think they're still on the way up.
Yeah, I think Shadur can have that kind of game. He's super uber talented. But don't forget, on the other side, Kobe Bryant is absolutely locked down for Kansas. One of the best corner prospects in college football right now. With him on him, it'll be a very fun matchup to watch. And maybe draft scouts are watching this and saying, what can Travis Hunter do as a receiver? Because almost everybody else is looking at him as a corner. Maybe you're watching and seeing maybe what can he do as a receiver against a top tier corner. That'll be interesting in this matchup. Next game here, BYU at Arizona State. This has become a very important game in conference play in the Big 12. BYU took the loss last week to Kansas. Again, we mentioned them as the killer of the conference, taking out all the top teams. And Arizona State has really found their momentum. Levitt's back and healthy. Scadaboo didn't even have a good game last week and they won. We'll see what this Arizona State team can do at home against a really good BYU team. Diving into the stats here, Jake Retzlaff again, 2,200 yards, 19 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. He does make a few mistakes here and there, but again, he's been very good for this football team. Really elevated them overall. Much better quarterback play than they've had, since Zach Wilson left. Then you look at ASU, Sam Levitt. Again, the guy has been really good when healthy. 1,900 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Very impressive stat line from a young player like Levitt. And of course, it's going to be important to see how these two teams run the ball. Two teams that lean on it heavily. Dalton, if you want to talk about that.
Yes, BYU has LJ Martin, Hinkley or Potty. Both are studs. I
Mhm.
mean, they have a few other backs. They just haven't been getting as many carries the last few weeks.
Yeah.
We talked about them before. Arizona State has one of my favorite running backs to watch, Cam Skattebo. He's a tough guy. He's just going to run over you. He doesn't care who you are. He's just going to run over you every time. Big running game here. Huge running game.
Yeah, again, the running game will be the most important part of this game. It's which team can stop the other's run game, as well as the quarterbacks. Again, they're going to be both be very dynamic rushers that can make plays once they get out of the pocket and get going. Talk about the receivers in this game. Both sides have their guys that they really rely on. Chase Roberts for BYU, 42 catches, 659 yards, 4 touchdowns. Retzlaff's guy, but they also have Darius Lassiter on that team. That's also very important for them. Of course, he has two weapons. You look at ASU, they don't have those two weapons. But they do use Scattaboo. Scattaboo is a good pass catcher. He had 4 catches last week for over 50 yards. So again, that opens them up. And then of course they have Jordan Tyson, the best receiver in this game, 58 catches, 833 yards, 9 touchdowns. When Levitt has played, Tyson goes off like he did last week. Again, very important player in this matchup. Going to make a pick. Arizona State is hot. BYU is not. To me, that's what I'm going with. I don't know why, but I think this Arizona State team, they have something to fight for. They've been picking it up lately. They have Levitt healthy. They have Scattaboo. I don't think that BYU can stop them on offense. Again, I think BYU is really, really good. I hate to see the fall off that they've had because, again, it was a fun team to pull for a long time, but they just had too many close games. And I think Arizona State's just a better overall football team. I'm taking Arizona State at home here.
I've picked BYU the entire year because I like the thing they had going. Well, they cooled off. I think they warm back up and win this game.
Next game here, Wisconsin on the road against Nebraska. Again, this Nebraska home field advantage is very important. They've sold out like 400 consecutive games. So Nebraska fans show up no matter how good, no matter how bad they are. But again, I think they're going in the right direction with Matt Rhule at head coach. Wisconsin, again, a team we've talked about is much, much better than they were at the beginning of the year. Look what they just did to Oregon. They gave Oregon the biggest scare they've had since that Boise State game. We'll see if Wisconsin can produce the same way in this game against Nebraska. And it's going to be a fun one. Again, they play for the Freedom Trophy every year, and Wisconsin kind of has had the upper hand in a lot of those matchups. Diving into the stats here, Braden Lott, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So if he throws a touchdown in this game, expect an interception. Bet on that. Also, 1,500 yards passing. Again, he has been a lot better, though, since they changed him to be the starting quarterback, and that move has made them a better overall football team. On the other side, Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. If he throws a touchdown, you might see an interception. 2,100-yard passer, again, a true freshman. The guy is really good. He's going to improve a lot in this system. Of course, he has Matt Rhule, a really good head coach. Fun to see what happens in this quarterback matchup. Dalton, if you want to talk about the running backs.
Yeah, Wisconsin has Tawee Walker. He's a stud. He does what needs to be done with a quarterback that's throwing 9 interceptions.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to hand it off to a running back that's going to get you a 5 yard rush. On the other side, you have three good running backs, Dante Dowdle and the Johnson and Johnson connection there. I've loved that little connection there. I think this is going to be a game that's going to be slow paced, and you're going to be able to need to run the ball.
Yep. Big Ten football at its
Yep.
finest. That is exactly how they play every football game, unless you're Oregon, because they weren't in the Big Ten before. You look at, like you said, Tawee Walker, again, the season he's having right now, it didn't start till, 3 or 4 games into the year. He was not their lead back. And you look at those stats, and those are pretty impressive for a guy that hasn't started all year. Again, that was what changed this Wisconsin offense a lot. Then, of course, you mentioned Emmett Ramir Johnson, the Johnson Johnson combo. Super fun. We've been saying that all year. We'll see how they handle this game. This is going to be important, like you said, control clock, run the ball. Speaking of not controlling clock and run the ball, receivers. These guys are good. They both have one guy that they really rely on. For Wisconsin, it's Vinny Anthony. He's picked it up a little bit since Locke took over at quarterback. And then on the other side, for Nebraska, Isaiah Nader, again, a receiver I have a lot of faith in. I think he's pretty good. We'll see if he can work in this game, get open, make some plays. Then again, that will open that run game a lot more if you can get to your star receiver on the outside. Going to make a pick here. The home game is obviously very important in this one, and that's why I'm going Nebraska. I think that the home field advantage will matter, and even though Wisconsin's had the upper hand a lot of the time, and Wisconsin has honestly looked better since they made those changes, I like this Nebraska football team. I think they're heading in the right direction with Matt Rule, and I just trust that they'll be able to run the ball, and Dylan Raiola won't throw a bunch of interceptions. I'm going Nebraska at home here to win the Freedom Trophy.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer from you there. I'm gonna go Wisconsin. I think that Dylan Raiola is gonna throw two interceptions. I've kind of hated on him the whole year. I don't really like the guy that much. We're gonna go Wisconsin here.
Next game here, this is, in my opinion, the game I'm going to be most excited to watch this week, although we have that really fun Indiana-Ohio State game. I just want to see what Army's made of. I really love Army. Obviously, who doesn't love pulling for the service academies? This is a big game for them. I mean, this is it. This is your first chance in a big time situation to get a massive win. People all year have really hated on them for them not having a very tough schedule. They haven't. They have not played a tough schedule. This game, you're playing a top 10 team. Actually, you're playing the sixth best team. That is a very big win. This would get them in that conversation with Boise to be a potential non-conference, but also if that Big 12 falls apart, what if we have two non-power teams make it? That would be kind of wild to watch out for. This is very important in that sense. Looking at the stats, Bryson Daly at Army is awesome. This guy is awesome. He has Heisman talk, serious Heisman talk. He's sitting about seventh, eighth, ninth, somewhere in that area on a lot of boards. Also high up in the odds. Actually has a chance. Now, is he going to win it? No. But he is up there. 600 yards passing, not a ton. Does have 7 touchdowns, only the one interception. Again, he will not make mistakes through the air. They don't throw the ball enough for him to do so. That's the thing, though. It's not about his passing attack. It's about his rushing. This is the best running quarterback in college football. Again, the system helps him a lot. But he has 1,000 yards, 21 touchdowns. The guy is phenomenal. He's up there with the top running backs when it comes to talking about the running stats. He's also very good when it comes to yards per carry. And again, the offense fluctuates around this guy. He has to be the playmaker. And then you dive into the other side with Notre Dame. A quarterback that would fit in that Army system. Riley Leonard, he can run the ball a lot. He does really well with the ball in his hands. And of course, a better passer for sure. 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. They figured things out. They've been absolutely rolling since that NIU game. Like, absolutely rolling. They flatlined Navy. They beat them by 40, and they haven't had a close game since. It's been really easy football. That could be a bad thing. You come in this game, you've just been rolling opponents. You might come in here and get met with a really tough opponent in Army. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing game for these two teams.
Very important here. Army, that's all they do is run the ball. You notice that their quarterback, Bryson Daly, only has 51 attempts. That is insane. Because the offense they run a triple option offense, and that's what they do. They run the ball and they control clock. And it's behind guys like Kanye Udo, Jake Rendina, and Noah Short. Those guys are the two I mentioned at first are two fullbacks, and those guys are just going to run over top of you.
Yeah.
And Noah Short is the guy that he's doing crazy. He's almost averaging 10 yards a carry. They need to feed that guy the ball a little bit more, in my opinion. And I know this is an option team. He's probably the guy that you pitch out to. So, I mean, that makes sense why he's getting so many yards a carry there. On the other side, Notre Dame has Jeremiah Love, and he's the best athlete in the field. And he is. He's a stud. And I would like to see him get a little bit more love on the field. He
Mhm.
only has 114 carries. You got to feed that guy the rock a little bit more.
Yeah, and again, he contributes in the passing game. He catches a lot of passes
Yeah.
there. That's also important. He'll go out and of course, they throw screens to him and stuff. But again, they rely on him a lot, kind of like you said. Army does the same thing on the other side. Kanye Udo, Jake Rendina, both very relied upon in this offense. If you watched Jake Rendina play football before, it's fun. The guy wears a big old neck brace. He's 245 pounds. He is a monster at fullback, an absolute monster. His legs are bigger than any of his linemen's legs. So you know he's churning. You know he's going to lay somebody out when he gets them up the middle to block. Very fun fullback to watch. Again, this is the only team you really get to watch those guys. So it's really, really cool what Army does. You look at the receivers. Army, we're talking about a receiver here as their leading receiver. 11 catches, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. Casey Reynolds has been really good this year. When they need him to make a play, he makes a play. Again, he's averaging almost 30 yards per reception. That's pretty crazy. But again, they only pull those out very, very few passes in the Army offense. And then on the other side for Notre Dame, Bo Collins, he's their guy. 30 catches, 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. Riley Leonard's went to him in the big time moments. And of course, like I mentioned before, Love will get work in the passing game as well. Going to make a pick here. Notre Dame at home. It is very, very difficult to go in there and get a win, but I believe in the boys. I mean, they're going to go overseas and serve for us. They can go to Notre Dame and get us a win. I'm picking Army. I don't know how you can't. You can't pick against this team. Bryson Daly, they run the ball, and they had a drive a couple weeks ago where they went 21 plays, 13 minutes of offense. That is almost an entire quarter that they took up running the ball. I love them. I love Army. I hope they win this game.
Yep. I'm gonna go Army also. Go Army beat Notre Dame.
Next game here, we're talking about the game of the week here. UTEP traveling to Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. It's going to be a real match, baby. The UTEP Miners are coming in there to get a big win. Just kidding. That's not going to happen. But diving into the stats here, Skylar Locklear, UTEP quarterback, 1,300 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The guy hasn't been a bad quarterback playing for UTEP in that kind of conference. I don't know how he'll handle a Tennessee pass rush that's been all over a lot of star quarterbacks this year. But again, not horrible stats for him. On the other side for Nico, you love to see a little bit more production last week out of him. But this is a great game for him to just go out there and let it rip for a couple quarters and then go take a break. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing game for these two teams.
Oh, I love this Russian attack. Dylan Sampson, he's my favorite running back in college football. You know why? Because he plays for the Vols. And for UTEP, you have Javon Jackson and Ezil Jolly, two stud running backs. They're about to go against Tennessee's defense, and I feel bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, we watched what happened when some of these teams like Chattanooga and Kent
Yeah,
State rolled in here earlier in the year. And that's when everybody thought Tennessee was just an absolute machine on offense because those teams can't stop them. They can't.
nah,
Dylan Sampson can run for 300 yards if he wants to.
yeah,
And,
big
and
stat
it,
game.
you're right. It's really hard for those kinds of teams to run on Tennessee's defense. They've been really good against the run. I just don't see a world where they can come in here and win this one. We look at the receiving stats. Again, Tennessee has a multitude of guys, but DeQuan Thornton, on average yards per catch, is like a top three receiver in college football. He just doesn't get the ball enough. And when he does get opportunities, he drops passes. He's
Yeah.
had a couple issues with drops this year. And then, of course, Nico's missed him here and there. They just haven't found a full connection yet. But maybe if they make the playoffs, that connection will really develop and blossom into something that is really awesome to watch. And then Odom on the other side for UTEP. Again, having a pretty good year. He has almost half of his quarterback's yards, 36 receptions, 642 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's the only guy on this team that I could see really break off and make a big play. If they can go to him, maybe they can hang around for a quarter. But again, going to make a pick. Tennessee at home. If they lose this one, they might just fire Josh Heupel on the spot. I mean, that's an impossible game to lose. I expect Samson and Nico to kind of go in there, handle business, and get out of there. Get them rested up and get ready for a rivalry game against a Vandy team that is still looming. Now they haven't looked as good as late, but this Tennessee team can handle business here. I got them winning this one big.
Yeah, balls by 70, but I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't want another Georgia State thing here happen here because I
Oh,
wonder because I know there's a lot of money going on between
yeah,
us and them because there's no way they would come up to Neyland for no money,
yeah.
and I don't want to bring me my money thing come happening again. So I better see like 80 points on the board.
Yeah, you should be okay. It is a
Yeah,
bye game, like you're mentioning, but
yeah.
this team is far better than that team was.
Oh, yeah, it's much better. I'm so glad we're a lot better than we used to be.
Yeah. Next game here, Virginia Tech on the road against Duke. This will not be an easy game. Again, this Duke team, they have dropped a lot of games in conference, not played a very difficult out of conference schedule. They've seen some glimpses of really good play from Malik Murphy, and then they've had some really bad games out of him. Again, the mistakes they made in that SMU game was just really hard to watch. They threw that game away, honestly, and that's something that the Duke offense can do. On the other side for Tech, the health is a really big question coming into this one. Going into practice this week, we had questionables for both of our running backs and Tootin and Malachi Thomas, and a questionable out for quarterback Kyron Drones. So far, only Malachi Thomas has been ruled out. He is a no-go this week. We do expect to have Coney behind Tootin. And again, if Tootin isn't healthy, I just really hope they don't play him. Don't ruin his future career, but also don't play him if you just can't give him the ball and let him make plays. If he can't do that, he's not going to be as good as just another running back being in there that's at least healthy. Diving into the stats here, quarterback play, of course, I mentioned Drones. We don't really know his status. Again, they've kind of been kind of secretive with it all year because he isn't injured where he can't go, but when he's on the field, it's just he can't really roll out and make plays. And you know as well as I do, that's a big part of his game. He's a big bruising quarterback, and you can't do that anymore with an ankle injury. And then on the other side, you look at Malik Murphy. This guy had to step up and play big time for Texas a few years ago, if you remember that. Transferred here. He has those dynamic plays, and again, he has some really, really great moments and then some really bad moments. 2,300-yard passer, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That looks pretty impressive. But another thing to mention is you look at his fumble numbers. He is very, very unsafe with the football when running. He's fumbled a lot this year. That's something to watch out for. If the defense can get some takeaways, that's how you could beat him. Don't even talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Duke has Star Thomas and Peyton Jones. Star Thomas is actually a star on the field,
Yeah.
and he's good, and I think he's going to be scary against this Virginia Tech team, especially as I mean I watched one game and he was going crazy in it. He was just him and Malik Murphy were just showing out.
Mhm.
They've done that all year. They have games where they just look really really good, and then they have really really bad down games. And I'm going to pass to you on the running game because I know there's a lot of injuries happening down there.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned, Thomas is done not playing. I would assume he could come back for the UVA game. I don't know. They haven't rolled him out for the year. And then PJ Prelude, a guy that was getting carries earlier in the year, also down 100. I think he's 100% done for the season. So yeah, it's just down to two backs really. It's Jeremiah Coney, it's Bashal Tootin, and we think Tootin's going to play. I'm not 100% sure if he goes. Again, I hope he's healthy. Jeremiah Coney, he's the real talking point here. In that Syracuse game, he had 9 carries for 96 yards. The guy has been good when he got playing time, but against Clemson, we didn't run him at all. I wish we'd have used him more. I think that game was actually winnable somehow without Tootin and without your quarterback being healthy. You could have still won that game if you had any run game at all. We did not have a run game. That's what ended up losing this for us. I think that will be important coming to this one, and I just really do hope Tootin is back to health because if he is, again, like you said, really great run game. Looking at receivers, if Tootin isn't healthy, this is obviously where you have to look. You have to go to Stephen Gosnell. You have to go to Benji Gosnell. You have to be able to go to Jalen Lane and let him make plays. And heck, get some trickery in there. Let's get him the ball on a pitch or get him the ball on, something different. Just to see him have the ball in his hands, let him make plays. And then, of course, other guys on this team that can contribute. If Ollie Jennings is really truly healthy, he's a guy that can contribute. And Felton, again, has some drop issues this year. If he could fix that, he would also be a really dynamic receiver. I saw he was invited to the Reese Senior Bowl, and so was Jalen Lane. So those guys are also playing for their future here. So we'll see what they can do in this Duke game. On the other side for Duke, of course, their lead receiver is Jordan Moore, and Star Thomas will catch passes for them. Jordan Morgan, 42 receptions, 632 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's Murphy's guy. He goes to him a lot. And they have a couple other weapons that they spread the ball around to, but will rely on more heavily. Going to make a pick here. Again, I think this Tech team is playing for something, not that they're playing for what they wanted to play for, and that's what sucks, but they're still playing for improving. They finished the year last year at 6-6. Of course, went on to win a bowl game against Tulane and ended up 7-6. You are sitting in a position where you could technically improve on this season. You could go 7-5 in the regular season and win a bowl game, go 8-5. I think they get this done on the road. It is going to be grueling. It is going to be tough. If you are missing your star players, a name that I will mention, Colin Schlee, of course, obviously will play a big role in this game. But on top of that, Pop Watson, a guy that's only played a few snaps this year, but when he come in against Syracuse, they had to worry about him running. He is a dynamic runner. He won Player of the Year in high school, and if he's in there, watch his running ability. We haven't seen him play a whole lot of Virginia Tech football. Maybe he's the thing that gets it done in this game if we don't have health from our other quarterbacks. I'm taking Tech in a really close one on the road.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go Duke here. I think that Tech's without you, especially if you're lacking your studs, it's just not. It's just going to be a growing game, and I think you just won't pull through on this game.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Another really good week of football, and the season just keeps getting better and better. We have two really important games in the college football playoff. You look at Indiana, Ohio State, that obviously has massive implications. And then you look at Notre Dame and Army. You need that Notre Dame team to lose for
Yeah.
Tennessee's sake. So that will be another important one this week. Of course, other matchups across the board, like the Conference USA, big time matchup that could decide that championship as well. Dalton, if you have anything want to add, go ahead.
Go Vols and go Army beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Can't wait for it. Also, wanted to give an update on our college basketball preview, or really not preview, but talking in the season as it started, and it's really rolling now. We've had some big games. Me and Dalton plan on filming something Saturday or Sunday. Hopefully, getting a video out this weekend right before Feast Week starts. Obviously, everybody that knows college basketball knows that's a really fun week of college basketball. And just a shout out, your Tennessee boys got a win tonight over Virginia. So
Yeah. I
that
know
was
I know you like that one. You hate the Who's.
yeah, I'm not a big Who's fan. Really, really
Who's the
don't like the
Who's?
Who's. So yeah, glad that they took the L. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. I appreciate that a lot. Like and comment, leave, anything you want us to do in the future, let us know. We're down to do a whole lot more content. Again, trying to publish that college basketball stuff soon. And peace.
Peace.